Welcome to the How the Heck Have You Been podcast. I'm Mark, and as the title would suggest, I just call up a bunch of people I haven't talked to forever and ask them how the heck they have been. So here's some intro music and the show. Alright guys, here's my conversation with Carlos Barboza, a peer of mine from Hearst Junior High and LD Bell High School. You know, we chit-chatted here and there, had some lighthearted conversation, but we also covered topics such as atheism versus religion and the LA race riots, which he experienced growing up in LA as like a 5 or 6 year old. So I hope you enjoy both the light and heavy parts of our conversation. There he is. That was fast. Look at you.
Mark.
How's it going, Carlos?
Good.
How's it going, man? How the heck have you been?
It's been great. It's been interesting. It's been up and down like everyone else, but overall good. I'm putting on my boots.
What kind of boots you rocking?
Cowboy boots.
I need to get some. I was at a where was it? Nice, not bad. I was somewhere. On the Grapevine Main Street, and I put on a cowboy hat and had like this stubble. I was like, I think I can pull this off. So I need to get myself at least a hat and some boots. My mother-in-law, her husband's from Germany, and so he came over and he like got some real, I don't know if they're snakeskin or just regular leather boots, but he was all into it as a foreigner getting into the Texas vibe.
Yeah. If you come to Texas, you got to see the boots, the cowboys, and sometimes even the horses.
Yep. It's funny too because people who aren't from here assume we ride horses everywhere, but I do live in a neighborhood that like has horses next door, like just down the street. You know, they've got horses. I'm like, oh, it really is ranch style in Texas. And we're just at a park in Keller, and there's a huge field with cows in it. So it kind of does play into the stereotype of cattle everywhere.
Yeah. If you go out in the country, there's cattle everywhere. There's, even not too long ago, 10 years ago, I had a house. I was living in the Keller area, and there were cows in our backyards, right? And then they started expanding. It just boomed. So you still have a lot of that culture. You just have to go outside of the city.
Yep. All right, so let's rewind because now you didn't go to the same elementary school as I did, right? Were you like Hearst Hills back in the day?
My kids are going to Hearst Hills Elementary, but
that's what I saw. Okay, I saw that school. PTA on Facebook. Where did you go?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I've been to the different areas of this country, lived in. I've experienced the different perspectives as well as a result. But I've started off like Lingwood, California. Washington Elementary School was the name of it. It was a different experience. It was just like the songs, a lot of the rap songs, just like that. Just imagine that it was there. Made a lot of good friends there. I remember I still somehow keep it sort of in touch with a few I've had in the past. You know, some of those childhood friends that you've had growing up with, in elementary school. I think some of them are on my Facebook. There are 2 of them, I think. And then we moved to a town called Downey, California, and that was more of a middle class, upper middle class type of place, but very California style.
Was that north or south of LA?
I
guess most stuff is north, right? But
I think, well, if I look at the map, I can tell you right away. I think it's west of Los Angeles or south.
Okay.
But they're all close to each other, but there's so much traffic over there that going to the beach would take 2 hours.
Yeah,
right?
I was just listening a year or 2 ago. Elon Musk was having an interview. I think he was in LA, and they kept asking him like if he could solve one problem because I guess he got stuck in traffic for like an hour and a half. Even though he's Elon Musk, he's like, I would fix the traffic. He just kept harping on how terrible the traffic was.
Yes, southwest, southeast.
Okay. Yeah, well,
And then
I was just thinking. So that was in 1992 was when all the LA riots were happening, and we would have been like 6 years old, right? So that was like right around that. You would have been kindergarten, first grade when all that craziness was going down.
oh my God, I have a very personal experience about that. Yeah, that was that happened right in my backyard almost.
That's crazy.
I don't know how deep you want me to get into this, but it was sadly very stressful. It was a war zone almost. A lot of people upset, different perspectives. You know, business owners got their guns too. Everybody was armed. One of the things that people were really afraid of is people attacking each other's homes. That was a big concern.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, as you can imagine, some of the business owners at the end ended up taking things in their own hands, and so they didn't trust really anybody that was walking the streets. Um, so people thought, well, it might get to the point where is this going to turn into a house to house thing? You know, these are the conversations that people would have with each other, not really publicized in the media.
Yeah.
So it was very intense. It was very sad. Um, yeah, I was right there. Like I remember thinking that. So my dad was in the Marines, so he's always had like military weapons and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause that's what that's what he does. And they're brainwashed. their brain, they're not. Maybe I guess everybody's brainwashed is the way I see it, but they're conditioned to be soldiers. So if something happens, they'll call up and say, "Hey, you ready? I'm ready to fight." You know, like
Yep.
with 9/11, he actually called. He
Yeah.
called, and I'm like, Are you crazy?" He's like, "Yeah, this was done on purpose. Somebody has to die for this." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Of course, they told them, we got enough people. Go back home. But and other people did the same thing, from what I understood. But he had weapons, and so I grew up around that, and um, I was used to seeing weapons, and it didn't really scare me. It scared me in a respectful way, right? Like not to play with those because people can get hurt.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
always fully aware of that. Um,
Well, there's
and
I've got a friend who's a big gun advocate too, and his point is there's kind of two groups of them. A lot of the pro gun people are super strict about gun safety. They'll go on, if they're having an event where they're shooting, they'll have one person who's designated, never doesn't drink the whole weekend. Is super safe. And then you have the other ones who are kind of more of the reckless ones who don't respect the danger of it as much. But
yes, you're absolutely right. There's people who are, it's almost like a religion of
yep,
of,
yep,
of gun, where you have a process and you have security safety measures, and if you don't know how to do that, or if you're not willing to learn, you lose a certain credibility.
mm-hmm.
So it's a very, yeah, and then you have others that are just crazy. So there's a balance that's needed. But in this case, it was something that got stuck in my brain forever since I can remember, because I was told that if people start rushing into the house, now I was like 6 or 5,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're like, "You're gonna have to fight to the death," and I'm like, "What?"
That is so crazy. So I've got
And
a 6-year-old daughter and a 8-year-old daughter. I cannot imagine having to tell them that. It's no way to
well,
live.
yeah, but I mean, so I lived in a street where the backyard led to a back alley, and the back alley led to a major street. The back alley had drug dealers. They had prostitutes. I used to see them all the time. I used to walk around them all the time, and then that's where the riots took place too. So they could have easily just taken
Yep.
a quick turn. It was intense. Like I have memories of all that, like what condoms were. I knew what they were for, just because I asked, like, "What's that thing?" Don't touch it.
Yeah.
That's not
Just
a
don't touch it.
balloon. And so you ask enough questions and you start piecing things together, and then they have to tell you, and then you think about it again because you just go back to being a kid.
So now was
But
all of
when you
that
get
kind of the reason that y'all moved to a more rural area?
uh, well, yeah, that's one of the reasons why we moved away from that. Although, I mean, we went back there just to look, and we even visited a neighbor there, and it's not even the same as it was before. It's
Yeah.
perfectly safe now, at least that part. Um, but like there was this one time where this one cop, he saved my life. I, I didn't know it at that time, but I thought about it like even in my childhood when I got older. He so it was around the same time. I was younger, between 6 and 7 or something, and I walked out because I heard some gunshots, and I thought I was gonna watch this like a movie, and I walked into it. Right, totally illogical. I know, as a kid especially, and I saw a cop hiding behind the car, and then another cop in the same car, and then this dude hiding in the corner, and he was blasting at them, and then the other guys were blasting back, and then I thought, man, I thought I was gonna go back to get some food to watch, like popcorn, that kind of mentality.
Jeez.
And then I thought, no, I'm gonna miss the action, so I wanted to get closer. I thought, oh, they're not gonna aim at me. I'm not part of the fight. Yeah, and this one cop sees me, and he's talking with his partner, and this partner is like, he just got really angry. His face turned really red, like bright red, like all his blood was rushing to his face out of anger. And then he decided to run at me so that I can leave. And then the other cop started covering and shot at him over and over and
Jeez.
over. And then because he was risking his life
Yeah.
so I can leave. So I ran to my house, or to the house. And when I ran into the house, I had locked the door. Of course, he didn't follow me. He went back to, I don't know what happened to them. I'm guessing they arrested the person because I didn't see any ambulances or anything happen. It just went away. I told my parents, and I got like the beating of my life.
Yep.
So
Yep. Oh.
that was one of those moments where you're like, oh yeah, you stupid. Now you're gonna have to pay with pain, so you will never forget.
Better to have the beating than to ever think that's a good idea again and get shot. But man.
Exactly. It was rough. It was a rough mentality, the mindset. It really was. The schools were neglected for many reasons, for good and bad reasons. The policies. I remember the policies changed. Like I grew up speaking Spanish only.
Mm-hmm.
Even though my great grandmother or my grandmother was born here, I don't know if it was California or Texas, one or the other. Um, they would go back and forth, but I grew up speaking Spanish only, and they had like the school. They were teaching us schools in Spanish and English, but then they switched and they said only English. I just so happened to be someone who was interested in history or language and things like that.
The whole state of California, from what I understand, switched from only English instead of transitioning slowly from Spanish to English, so that they won't be behind. It caused a lot of problems because a lot of the people who didn't know English, they just stayed behind, right? Because they couldn't advance until they learned English, and by the time you learn English, it's been 3-4 years. You lost 3 or 4 years. So I had already lost really like 2 or 3 years from a bunch of classes that never really had a full-time teacher, just a bunch of substitutes. Plus, on top of that, it just gets worse and worse. So eventually, we moved to a different school district for the same reason, because it wasn't a school where you had helicopters chasing criminals in the schools, right, every day.
Yeah.
So, and to me, that was normal. Like, they would run past me and things, and I was like, oh yeah, it's just another day.
Oh,
But
that's
we
so
went to Downey, and that was a whole new world. It was a whole new world. I was like, it was like a different country pretty much, and there was it was just different. So that was that was a lot of stability, a lot of people making plans for things and doing things. What is this, participation? A lot of
looking into the future. Trying to contribute to the town around you. Yeah.
So I got exposed to that. My sisters were younger, so they got exposed to that a lot earlier. I got to experience the bad end and remember. And then by the time we got to Texas, so whatever's happening now with the home prices going up and exploding, and the economy exploding and everything, the way things are happening now, that's the exact same thing that was happening in California.
Yeah.
Very similar. very similar. And I just remember thinking maybe you should keep the house for 2 years and then make $1 million. But
Mm-hmm.
we came over here like in 1999 or 2000. Now we started off in Irving in an apartment there, and I was going to Irving high school. No, not high school. Middle school, where they forced us to wear uniforms. So that was another world where I was never forced to wear a
Another
uniform.
culture shock.
Uh, Another culture shock, yes. And it was like a private school, and we were supposed to sit, and we have assigned seats in the lunch room, or whatever. And I don't know. It was different. And of course, it was middle school, and you go through all the growth pains like everyone else,
It's the
right?
worst.
The the friend who has a girlfriend whose girlfriend was cheating on him, but he wouldn't believe you. You know, a
Yep.
bunch of dumb
Yep.
drama.
And you can never.
What?
They're never going to take the friend's side. They're always going to take the girlfriend's side until they figure it out
I
for
learned
themselves.
that.
Yep.
I learned that
It does
myself.
no
I'm like,
good
do
trying
not
to.
get
Yeah.
in between. They're going through nature, so
Yep.
just let them go through it. So, yeah, and then eventually, we there was this house that was being sold by a teacher in River Trails, and that's where we moved to. She was getting a divorce, and so they just wanted to leave really quick, and so houses they just sold it for whatever price, and my parents just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and they got the house.
Nice.
And that's how I ended up in River Trails, going to Hearst. What is it? Hearst Junior High.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, man.
And
HJA.
is
But that
were
was
you, were
another
you there
culture
too?
shock.
Yes, it was. It was because
Well, what brought you guys
Texas,
to
but Hearst.
Texas in the first place? Did you have family over here, or a job that you opened up for your dad or mom?
My mom was no, it was not my mom. My mom finds random jobs like she was working at the elementary school in California because I was like I was turning into a Bart Simpson. I was really bad, and I remember thinking I was gonna plan things and just I had like a weird motto. It was bad, but they she ended up getting a job at the school, and so I calmed down for that. And then once we moved here, it was for her reason was because of family being here,
Okay. Yeah.
and my dad's reason was because of jobs being here. So that's pretty much it. I think that was the reason I was given, and so we just
Leave it at
I
that.
just followed them up to 13.
Yeah.
That's all I knew. So yeah, we came here, and then we went to Hearst Hills. No, not Hearst Hills. Hearst Junior High. Yeah, it was like another country in itself. So I felt like I've lived in 4 different countries in the country. You look at a map, and it really is like that. You have like different cultures within the country. It's just the way it is. Even Canada probably has the same thing with Quebec, Mexico. Pretty much any country that's sizable. Even the small ones have regions.
Yeah, a lot of people like in Europe don't quite understand how vast America is, how many different areas and different cultures there are. They think somebody from up the Northeast is experiencing the same thing as somebody from LA versus Portland, Oregon. It's like just completely different worlds. Climates as well. Yeah.
Climate, everything. It was a different set of rules back in the day. People developed different ways of surviving, and that's now we have television and modern telecommunication and information era that we're in, the medieval side of the information era, but that's what's keeping everyone together really. Otherwise we'd be fighting each other more probably, but information's what's keeping people together, I believe, just at the same time. But anyways, I guess it's a different topic. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's different cultures, and and but yeah, I then grew. It went by like that to me, like everything, because every piece was like a segment, right? And then boom, like California, so a different part of California, then Irving, and then HEB. But I've stayed and then once I graduated, I then moved to the Keller area.
Yeah, so you've just been here ever since.
And I've stayed, and then I went back to HEB. I'm living in River Charles again because my wife got a real estate license and she wanted to try it out. So we moved and started experimenting with real estate investment and that kind of thing. And so we moved again a couple of blocks away, and yeah, but yeah, I started off working at Lockheed for a while.
Oh, cool.
That was that was pretty cool and interesting. Got to see all the planes taking off. I went to UTA. I didn't know what school I was going to go to be honest.
Go
I
Mavericks.
didn't even
Go
know
Mavericks.
that I had to prepare for. Huh?
I said go Mavericks. Both my sisters went to
go
UTA.
Mavericks. Yeah. Both who?
Both my two older sisters majored in art in Arlington.
Okay, cool. Yeah, they have a pretty good art. I know they have a really strong architecture program over there, and they have a lot of art things around the architecture building.
They did. They both did the glass blowing, which was it's actually one of the few schools in Texas that has a good glass blowing program. But yeah, my sister wanted to be an architect, and then decided it wasn't for her, and just is teaching art now, and back in Arlington actually. But
wow, interesting. I didn't know that it was one of the few places to blow to get a degree in blowing glass. But I mean, Texas is one of the. I think they have a lot of art.
We've got a lot of good art.
Austin being like art capital of Texas of the U.S. is Austin, I believe. But yeah, I was into art too for a while. In case some people remember, I almost forgot, but I was into the art stuff in high school.
yeah, so I'm trying to remember. You like what were you doing around? Because we didn't really hang around in the same run around in the same circles, even in junior high.
Where did you graduate?
What's that?
When did you graduate high school? 05?
No, we were both. You're 04, right? We were both 04.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Okay. I don't know why I thought maybe you were 05 or something like that, or maybe 03, but yeah, 04. I still talk to a lot of friends who I grew up around in the circles in high school. A couple of them. I don't know if you might know them, like Ryan Wynn and Abhijit, and just to name a few. Magdalene comes into mind. I've seen her a few times. My wife would like talking to her.
Magdalene? Yeah. What was her last name?
I don't know how to say her last name.
Yeah, it's a longer one. Yeah, I do remember Magdalene. That's funny. Well, it's crazy too that some schools are small, but LD Bell had like 650 kids per graduating class, and like as a teacher, I remember thinking it was weird that all the freshmen didn't know each other, and then I thought, well, there's 600 of you. Like, how can you know all? So you take your 5 classes throughout the year. You know a couple of kids in those classes, but it's a huge this whole microcosm unto itself per school. But
it is. It's an experience in itself, and everybody had a different experience. Everybody saw things differently. But for some reason, I was branded the art person. I won an award and like a medal,
and
nice. Then I just got stuck with that.
Yeah. Pigeonholed. There's a tendency to do that in high school. You like try to attribute one single quality to that kid, and it's like, all right, here's your identity now for the next 4 years.
Yeah. So that was it, and honestly I thought, man, I don't know. I feel like I really like to study history so that I can make strategic, tactical decisions.
Mm-hmm.
That's more like my mindset, my mentality. I wasn't always interested in art, but I did appreciate the art that it did influence me, and that it was a good way to express yourself and myself, really. I thought that was a good experience. I think people should, get into some kind of art, music, drawing, anything. I think you're into art, right? Aren't you doing some kind of designs?
Yeah, I've always come at it kind of sideways myself, so I've never considered myself an artist, but now I'm, during COVID lockdowns, I started doing time-lapse videos and me doing, it's kind of like intricate marker drawings. And I started doing that in high school. Even before then, I would do mazes, and that kind of developed into the style I do. And then somebody online was like, hey, you should start trying to sell these. And so I thought, okay. And then that just kind of snowballed into a small business where I'm now doing art shows almost every other week, just selling my stuff. I turned it into greeting cards and did you see the playing card deck that I've got? That's the new thing. I did the artwork for all 52 playing cards, so that's pretty. Actually, that I don't know if you remember Matt Hartman or Conrad Hartman. He goes by online. I think your friend's on Facebook, but he's the
I
one that was
remember
like,
him.
yeah, he was like, hey, you should make this into a full deck. I'm like, all right, 150 hours later of drawing each card, I've got it out now. But yeah, I have no formal training as an artist. It's just kind of something I've done on the side, and it's weird to start considering myself in that role because I've always just been an English teacher, like an English guy. So, but like
You're
I
an
say,
English teacher.
yeah, I teach part time now. I taught at Grapevine High School for a while, and then with the district at another school called Collegiate. That's an early college high school, and I'm just doing like 2 classes a week at this private school while I do some art and some other stuff. So that's been fun. More parenting. Get to be more involved with the school with the daughters.
Yeah.
And it looks like
Yeah,
you've got 2 daughters about the same age, right? It looks like.
Oh yeah, 2 daughters. I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
Ruby,
that's exactly the same.
Yeah, and then I decided. I told my wife, I'm like, Lydia, we first wanted a daughter, and then we wanted maybe a son. We get to have both the experiences of having a boy and a girl, and then she was a little wary about getting having a 3rd child, and I thought, all right, let's just roll the dice, and if he comes out a boy, then we'll stop, and if it's a girl, we'll try again. She's like, no, we're not trying again. It's just 3 and that's it.
3 and done. Yeah, for us it was.
He came out of Ben.
What'd you say?
He came out of he's Benjamin. He's a boy.
There you go.
But he's the reason why if you can see the tiredness in my eyes.
Yeah. Well, how old is he now? Right now?
He's 2.
2. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, I remember when our second came around. It doesn't double the work. It like quadruples it. To have that many young kids, we thought you think it's trouble with just one, and then everything compounds upon itself. All the extra laundry, all the extra dishes, all the loss of sleep. So you're just emerging out of that phase, right? Like of the finally probably getting some better sleep now that the 2-year-old is on his sleep schedule.
Exactly. Like yesterday, around 6 o'clock, my body this happens to me sometimes, but not often. But lately it has. Catching up on sleep, where your body just says, "Just going to sleep right now. Shut down." And there's nothing you can do about it. Like this heavy sleep just fell on me, and I just laid there. And I got this text from work, and I texted them back really slowly, and I'm like, "I'll get to you later."
Yeah.
At 7 or 8 o'clock, I woke up feeling better, and it was a really easy request, and I just did it. Like, it took me 10 minutes, and that was it.
Those are the best. Those are the best naps.
It felt so good to take that nap.
Yeah. So is he still napping during the day at 2?
Yes, he's still napping. We take him to a daycare, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, wears him out.
Having them, giving them that schedule, and so he knows. He fights it. He yells at me every time. He's like, no. But then he falls asleep anyways.
Yeah, that's the last. I remember the last losing that in the middle of the day nap time. It was pretty rough when they finally stopped needing it, and then they're exhausted by like 6:30 at night.
Yeah, I'm at that point where I'm like, yeah, soon, and I get to have a normal life again, go places, and So, this pandemic thing, right? When it happened, it really took. So, right before the pandemic, I was working on an MBA, right,
nice.
Against my wife's wishes.
Yep.
But I still did it anyways, and it worked out. We all came out good at the end, but it wasn't easy, right? You miss pretty much everything, and so by the time the pandemic came around, I had graduated, and it was another 2 years of being locked up, right? So it was like 2.5, 3, 5 years of being locked up.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah, that's rough. You just had gotten done with it, and then you go back into lockdown, literal lockdown. So before that, what was your undergraduate in at UTA?
Oh, at UTA, so I didn't know what I was gonna get into. I just picked whatever I went into. I thought I was gonna pick something cool. I, I wanted to pick accounting, international business, or finance. I didn't know. I understood the basics of supply and demand to know, like, okay, based on what I want to plan in my life, I, I got to do something that makes sense. So, but I still picked the worst of the three, international business, for a return on investment. So I didn't know, but towards the end, I decided that the best, I'm just gonna graduate, get it over with. I just wanted to move out. I was living at my parents. I'm like, I'm done with this. My dad is like in that mindset forever, I guess. The Marine mind, I don't know, but I just wanted to move on, and so I moved, and so I just decided to graduate, and so I took a lot of internships. First, I started at TCC, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I got my 2 year thing. Just got that out of the way, saved a bunch of money. I had to work and paid a lot of my own things, but I saved a boatload of money. And
Yep.
then once I went to UTA, right, I was like a couple of $1,000s, several thousand. Like I could have bought a nice car with that money, but I took a bunch of internships like the last couple of years because I learned. Like I saw some of the people that didn't have any work experience. They were struggling to find a job. Plus, it was 2009, 2010, right? Recession, one of the biggest in U.S. history. And
Yep.
so internships, I took an internship, a free one that didn't pay me because nobody wanted to hire me as an intern that got paid, even though I had experience as a teller and a bunch of other jobs working at Six Flags and at Sports Authority. This is very competitive, right? So you have all these people who have been preparing much
Mm-hmm.
longer and much harder and smarter. So I thought, okay, then I'll get a free one that doesn't pay. So I paid the price there, uh, got a good reference from them, then got an internship at Lockheed, and then 2009 hit, and I was like, whoa, I'm not gonna find a job anywhere else. So I guess I got to really give them a good impression. I got a job there at Lockheed doing proposal analysis, cost estimating for the F-35 program. The worst program to get into when you're first out of college and not knowing what to do because it's like very fast and it's very in demand and
Yeah, I was about to say that sounds pretty
none,
intense. Sounds pretty high level.
it's very intense, very advanced, and as you can imagine, people are being laid off at the
Yeah.
same time while you're coming in as a new guy.
Yeah.
So what are you? You're a warm body who's replacing people's friends.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So that
That's
was
tense.
so people were trying to really get me. So whenever difficult times come, the real self comes out, right? So I'm like, I really got to network and call. Like I remember calling companies and be like, I want you to hire me. Let me tell you why. Like I was crazy, and I'm never that type of person. I'm quiet.
Yeah.
Got out of
Yeah.
my comfort zone. They said, well, what do you want to do? After calling them, they're like, well, let's talk to this guy who has a lot of, like, he really wants to do something. Let's talk to him. He's got a degree. Let's see what he has to say. And of course, I got rejected like 1,000 times, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like 10 times when I got finally somebody answered somewhere, literally 1,000 times. And they would say, I would say, I want to get into finance. I'm like, what do you have? A finance degree? Did you take any finance classes? Accounting classes? I did. Well, you got other people who have accounting degrees and finance degrees, but you don't. So what? And then I'm like, well, but I can still learn. And they're like, I think you should be in marketing. You look more like a marketing person.
It
And I'm
sounds
like,
like
no.
it sounds like that's all you were doing was marketing yourself.
Exactly. So I said, no, you're not. I'm going to do this. And so I think it was me trying to prove myself into something, right? Like I want to do something that's out there for me. So that's where I ended up at Lockheed doing proposal analysis and estimating for F-35 parts. Diminished, like I feel like I'm going through an interview right now.
Yeah.
Working on diminishing manufacturing sources. It's you got these parts that are built. And remember, this is 2009, 2010. Some of the businesses were just going away for multiple reasons, but mainly because business was bad. And so some of these small suppliers who were building the parts for like the helmet or the display screen or whatever, the plane, random parts around the plane, they couldn't make it anymore. So Lockheed and the government made a deal and said, well, we'll pay you enough money to sustain you long enough to build all those all at once, and then you make the money, we get the parts, and we won't have to redesign the parts around it, which cost even more to do so. And so that's what I did. And so, yeah. And then I made friends, really good friends there who were like a lot more prepared and advanced degrees than I have, in like software engineer, electrical engineer, just really, really bright individuals. And they're still working there, a lot of them. Some of them moved on to other things, but that's where I met a lot of people there too.
Well, that's what you
Working
really
on
want. I mean,
several
that's
programs.
the ideal situation is to be, you know, to have a bunch of friends who are a little more advanced than you. I've got a little friend group now. One's a lawyer. One studied under one of the Supreme Court justices when he went to college. He taught a class. I'm like, it's kind of cool to be around people like that, learn from them, and kind of like step up with their knowledge as well, and kind of get a better idea how the world works, how you can kind of leverage that to be more successful in the future. But
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. It has a big impact on the way you think, on what how to develop yourself. Not only that, but it gives you ideas on how to help develop your kids too in the right
yep,
direction.
yep, 100%.
Most importantly, and all the really good influences. I have a lot of my friends are doing a lot better than me, and I'm really happy for them, and I'm really happy to know them too. And I think that's a really good thing. It also helps me try to look at things from a different perspective instead of just my own and thinking, oh, I'm just stuck in this mindset, when really there's a completely different perspectives that you can look at that are way better than mine. And so I always try to look at things from that approach.
Yep.
But
Well, you said you got.
thereafter, I mean,
I was
huh?
gonna say you said you got rejected like 1,000 times, and that's really it's so weird that it's like that's kind of what you want, right? Like you should just expect reject. You should be putting yourself out there so much that you should be getting that much rejection. Otherwise, you're not going to hit that gold every once in a while. I mentioned it before. That
Yeah,
I think the first episode of this season, I talked to. I don't know if you remember Lauren Denson. Um, she went to her junior high with us, but then she didn't go all the way through Bell. But anyway, she's getting a book published coming up in the next couple in August, the late August, and so it was one of those
that
things.
name sounds so familiar.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
was.
I have to look her up.
You probably remember her from her junior high because it was anyway. So it's like you get rejected. You send off your manuscript assuming it's going to get rejected because you get so many form letters back. It's not for us, not for us, not for us. You become kind of just build up a resistance to it. Or even when I'm selling my art at an art fair, it's like 98% of the people who look at my stuff aren't going to buy it, right? Like I get quote unquote rejected, most of the time because they're not there to buy whatever I'm selling. But then you hit that
Exactly.
one customer every 30 minutes that buys something and buys a bunch of stuff. But that idea that you don't want to be rejected because it proves something negative about you is like one of those really. I think it's a lesson probably most of us learn by our age. But when you're growing up, like teenagers, it's hard to see past that. Like you don't want to put yourself out there and get knocked down, even though it's kind of part of it. You get over it and develop that mindset of needing it almost.
All the alarms set off. All the alarms, all these natural alarms set
Yeah.
off when you get rejected, because it's you making a decision. You have to decide, you're gonna make yourself become a better person, or maybe there's something wrong with your confidence and you need to work on that. And there's nothing wrong with anybody, right? It's something to assess for yourself, to look, to reflect, and then you realize, being comfortable with yourself is part of being confident, because some individuals, like you said, are looking for different things, for different needs, and sometimes they're not aligned, or if not everybody not everybody has to offer what someone needs, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like my kids, they all like different things. Some want chocolate, some want vanilla, and
Yeah.
some want just different flavors. And so that's how you have a store. You see all these things, and this basically goes back to the basics of economics, right? That's why I mentioned that earlier. It comes down to that.
Yeah.
But when
Well,
you're a
and
teenager, huh?
good, good.
Oh yeah, when you're a teenager, like you said, um, you the way I might be wrong, the way I see things, but um, not everybody got to live past their teenage years growing up, right? Back in the days, a lot
Hmm.
of what we've developed and what we think is caveman mentality, and all these bells and whistles glow, and you're like, hey, you're in trouble. You got to watch.
Yeah, that's true.
And so
Yeah.
when you learn that as an older person, you think, all right, I can calm down. I know what you think logically, and you understand what's happening, and then you start making reasonable decisions based off of your understanding.
Well, we've at this point in history, we've kind of circumvented a lot of evolutionary stuff, like you say. Like, most genes were mutated by the time you could reproduce, and that was really the important thing. It was like, all right, get to puberty, have a kid, and then that kid, and so it's like this really short time frame. And now that we're living 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, it's like we have all this leftover stuff that doesn't really apply to that time frame. In fact, what's the word? There's some word for it. It's like basically after you stop having kids, any mutations to your genes obviously no longer matter because they're not going to get passed on. I think it's like not shadow or the anyway. I'll have to look it up, but yeah, it's really
I don't know.
fascinating. Yeah.
It is. It is. It's very fascinating, the human development, and I, being a person who has grown up very religious, it's very interesting because you might not be, but I am, and it still doesn't counter my beliefs. It's almost impossible to prove, right, that something isn't or something doesn't. But throughout all of my difficulties, all of the struggles that I have personally faced, one of the methods that I've really one of the ways that have really helped me go through that is through religious experience, spiritual experience, and apparently a lot of other people have the same thing, right? Because otherwise there wouldn't exist any faiths or religions. The whole world is full of them. So it must be a way that humans really become resilient, in my perspective.
Well, listening to a guy named Brett Weinstein, and he's gotten into a little bit of controversy. He's kind of somewhat controversial figure for various reasons, but one of his arguments is that whether or not religions are true in the scientific sense, they probably did evolve to be as a benefit to all of us, right? Like it's probably better to be a person of faith than not, um, regardless of how true it may be. Is kind of his point, which I take. It's like the sense of well, and the thing that startles me too about some of the atheists, the new atheists, especially Dawkins. I was just listening to Richard Dawkins' interview, and
Yeah.
they don't really provide any alternative. They say we don't really need religion to be good people, and then they just leave it at that. And somebody recently asked him, what you would replace it with, and Dawkins' response was, "Oh, just this respect for nature and science." Like, yeah, but that's not anything. Like, and most people don't go into science deep enough to have that awe of like how an atom works or something. Like that's until we have this really ancient, time honored system that has survived, whether it is Islam or Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like these have all proved to be somehow really helpful to us, or really authentic, and have enriched our lives. Again, whether one or another is the quote unquote one true religion, it's like they're around here for some reason, and we shouldn't just we shouldn't do away with them um, that quickly or easily, right? Like there are downsides. There are religious wars too. I understand. Sam Harris is big on that, fatwas and all of that. But you can't just ignore the benefits too.
There's been a lot of wars, religious wars throughout history. There's been a lot of non-related or wars that are not religious related as well.
Yeah, and
Ultimately,
and
all
the
wars have really been up to about power and money, and then they're
right,
justified with religion most of the
exactly, yeah.
time,
They
from what
may
I've
or may
read.
not have happened just the same without the religious reasoning behind it.
Yeah, I think it would, and it still does, even without religion. But yeah, so that's what that's how I've personally gone through my decision making, and I think it was a good thing overall. It has helped me make very good decisions and helped me be more family oriented and have goals around that, being family. Um, so it gives you purpose as well. And everybody has, not, maybe some people don't like to follow religion, but they have a sense of faith, of some kind of faith, and you can see it. Even Hawkins has a sense of faith in something. He just doesn't want to call it a religion, but that's fine. It's some kind of faith. So it's good. But yeah, it's eventually I ended up getting an MBA in healthcare. I know. How did I jump
Oh,
from
nice. Yeah.
war to health?
Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I went from war to healthcare. So I worked for this company, and I made a lot of mistakes. I made a whole bunch of mistakes. Met a lot of people who grew up really, really um, prepared in their careers, and it was very difficult for me to wrap my head around how do I compete in these areas. Like I remember working on a very complex report, and I spent so much time trying to understand how like Excel and automation works. It led me to learn how to do SQL even now. Um, Learning to do Python eventually that sort of led me to, but just trying to understand these things, and there was a moment when I developed this thing, right, and it was like it worked 99.9% of the time. So it was a pipeline for identifying opportunities for future wins in a different company, not Lockheed, for military contracts.
Okay.
Most of them being in Afghanistan and things like that, or Iraq, and I thought it was so cool. Like I thought this can be perfected, and I was in the marketing team, business development marketing, and I was like, this could be so cool. Like determine, you can use science to help determine what might happen,
Mm-hmm.
and you really can with data and information, probabilities, but it was so elementary, and I concluded we must be like in an era where information is so unadvanced that they're hiring me to do this, and I'm trying to figure this out. No, there's no like science to it yet, but and so that led me to understanding or trying to figure out what to do. And of course, I made dumb mistakes and of all kinds, everything you can think of, and almost everything, not everything, but almost. And I ended up I stepped on the tails and toes of the wrong people sometimes, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're like,
Yeah.
when, even if you're right, when not to do that. And I didn't think about that, and so I ended up leaving. I'm like, I gotta get away from this. I started over, started fresh, and I started volunteering in the hospitals. So I became like almost like an intern again. So for a while I went back to because I wanted to get into healthcare, and so nobody wanted to hire me in healthcare because I didn't have any healthcare experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I volunteered at JPS, at Texas Health Resource in Fort Worth. JPS gave me a lot more experience because I needed more help. I helped the nurses. The nurses even thought maybe I should become a nurse at one point, but I learned I don't want to be a nurse by helping the nurses. but it was cool. I'm glad I helped.
It's a tough job. My wife's a nurse.
It is a very tough job. You need a lot of it has to be in you. Like you have to have a lot of love in you.
Yep. Yeah, I read a book. What was that book called? I forget. But he at one point he goes and he's going to be a priest or in a monastery or something, and he goes and helps some of the monks take care of this person who's basically homeless and like defecates on themselves and can't take care of themselves at all. And he realizes, nope, I do not want to do this. He's like, I do not have the, like you said, that patience and love. He's like, no, this is not for me.
Every time I meet a nurse, I love them more.
Yeah.
That's like I have a special, like I look at them and I'm like, man, they're so special. They really are. And then you hear a lot about the burnout, and I'm like, and that's sad. You need to take care of these people. There's not enough people like that, and who are capable and who are qualified, and at the same time very loving in that area. So something needs to change in that. I don't know exactly what, but maybe information will lead us to that the solution of that.
Well, it's the
But
same in public schools. Like to a lesser extent, good teachers are truly gifts as well, and easily get burned out and either burned out or they get promoted out of the classroom and away from the kids, which is sad as well. But
interesting.
anyway,
My sister's a teacher, and I do remember growing up and overhearing teachers saying how they were tired. I remember one of them in elementary school in California. She yelled at us because she said, "You guys think we live here? We don't live. You, oh my gosh, you guys think we live here?" Like she was almost having like a breakdown. And I'm like, and you're like, "You guys really think we live here? Like we live at like there's a little box
in the
and
building,
we sleep
yeah.
there and we get out." And I'm like, "Yeah, we did think that." And she's like, "Oh my god, no! I have a home, I have a family, I have a life outside of this."
Yeah.
And that's when I first had like started having a sense of like empathy and like of teachers, but I never knew it was so universal, like at least widespread, like what you tell me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's a lot. So I think that's very interesting. You tell me that. But I went to I worked at UT Southwestern too. After that, I got a job because I had taken some classes online to learn SQL. That I had learned that some people were being trained for SQL in some of these other military government contract companies I worked for. And so I thought, well, I'm going to teach myself SQL then. And so I learned, and so I got an opportunity at UT Southwestern. And SQL is just like having a bunch of Excel tables, and then the SQL is the language that helps you pivot it automatically and connect different tables together to come up with a problem or come up with a table that can help you solve problems. It can be used multiple ways, but it's just automated. Like if you know how to use Excel, eventually you know how things run in the background. It's just information. You got like software engineers and engineers working on collecting the data and analyze it, making it all good so that someone like me can pull it and then use it, and then executives can make conclusions out of it. And so eventually I started my MBA there. I jumped anytime, and I learned by that time an opportunity comes, you jump on it.
Yep.
So I jumped on that. There was an opportunity for an MBA, and I got in. And then there I met other smarter people who were nurses, who were pharmacists, who had been in healthcare for longer than me, and radiology type, And so, and then someone else like me who was like a business analyst type, but they were even older and more experienced and advanced than me even then. So I felt like I was like in this small fish in this bigger fish type of place, but they were all very friendly, nice. I learned so much from them. One of them ended up getting a job in another company, and that's how I ended up working for them, where I'm currently at right now. Doing business type, accounts payable, accounts receivable, but at the same time using SQL, using that knowledge to help me find better solutions and help automate a process. And I'm in the process of, my head hurts so much, and I had to take a break from it, but of learning data science. So
what was it? Of learning what?
I'm so excited. Data science.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited about like having to go through the pain of having to learn something. I think that's just something that's normal, but especially when you have family, it's harder. But it's I need to do it with the spirit, because there's so much. So that's my next step. Basically, that's where I'm at, and
nice.
I hope that I can use that to help the world in a better place, be in a better place. That's not guaranteed, but that's the mindset I'm going into it for.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a good place to stop, because we're actually at the hour mark, if you can believe it. But I have a couple things first. Unless is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we bring it to a close? Because I've got your pop quiz still.
Oh no, we're good.
All right, so before we do the quiz, I'll do my prepared statement, which I do every episode. Just a little positive thing that I like to say to all my guests. So, Carlos, because of your curiosity and spirit, I am sincerely grateful and better for having known you. You are one of the hundreds of kind, generous, and benevolent people I know in a world where we need every single one we can get. So keep being awesome and doing awesome things and studying some awesome data. All right?
Thank you. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that.
All right,
I
now
believe what you said.
here is your quiz. Your last name is Barboza with a Z, which sounds very similar to Barbosa with two S's, which is the name of the character from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions about Captain Barbosa. Are you ready?
Oh no. Okay.
They are multiple choice, and you have 7 seconds to answer, even though I never actually hold my guests accountable to that 7-second rule. All right, number 1. Captain Barbosa is played by which famous English actor? A. Jeremy Irons, B. Geoffrey Rush, C. Hugh Grant, or D. Ralph Fiennes?
I'm really bad with famous people's names. I'm gonna have to guess C.
Incorrect. It is Geoffrey Rush. Geoffrey Rush, not Hugh Grant.
Geoffrey Rush.
Yeah. All right, number 2. Captain Barbossa's first name is... I did not know this before I looked it up, so this is not a fair question. A. Hector, B. Henry, C. Jacob, or D. Jeremy?
I think it's Hector.
Correct. A is correct. Very nice. All right. I don't think I've had anybody fail all the questions before. All right, number 3. What is unusual about Captain Barbossa at the beginning of the first Pirates movie? A. He is missing a hand. B. He is missing a leg. C. He is only a teenager. Or D. He is actually undead.
Undead?
Correct. Yeah, they were all cursed with the
Because he
gold.
is missing a hand. I mean, he technically is, I think, missing a hand and a leg.
Well, I get, yeah.
Not-
Well, they get
that's
ripped up, but he still has them connected, right? He doesn't have any peg legs or hooks or anything. All right, number 4. I didn't know this one either, but I don't. Okay. In Portuguese, the name Barbosa means what? A.
I've looked
Barbaric.
this up.
B. Shaving cream. C. Mini palm trees. Or D. Turtle.
Well,
I was not able to.
I must have
I was
been-
not able to confirm the answer to this. I found it in one place, which was like a little stupid article. But so I don't know if this is actually true or not.
I've looked for a while, and there's different languages, back in the day, but Barboza, I think the closest one to it is the palm one. But
Correct.
there are no palms. There aren't palms in Portugal. It's a different kind of vegetation
Yeah.
that's kind of shrub.
Look at you. You know your ancestry and name meanings. All right. Well, Portuguese is somewhat similar to Spanish, right? I know they're not that similar, but they share a lot of the same root words, I believe.
Barboza is it sounds different. Like it sounds like a bearded person. Barbosa, like Barboza, you're very beautiful.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay. Yeah.
But it also sounds like barbaric. It sounds like a lot of things. Barboza, depending on what language, right? There was an actual pirate named Barbarossa,
Oh, nice.
named because he had a red beard, but it's Barbarossa. Red
Yeah.
Rosa being.
Rosa.
So
Oh, that's
it's got
interesting.
all
All
these
right.
Latin.
Look at you. You know your stuff. All right. This is good. Okay, last but not least, true or false? There was a Captain Barbossa on the original Disney ride that the movie is based off of, Pirates of the Caribbean. True or false?
I'll say true.
It is false. There was not an actual Barbossa. After the movie came out, they changed one of the characters to look more like him, but he was not based on an original character in the ride. That's
It
not
would
bad.
make sense if they did. It's Barbarossa.
Yeah, since there really was a Barbarossa. Yeah. All right, good stuff, Carlos. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for volunteering too. You're one of the few ones that reached out to me rather than vice versa when I did that Facebook post.
Yes, thank you for having me and for this interview. I think it's really good. This is also a way for me to break out of my bubble, being so used to being just internal and not reaching out and being more willing to express and get to know people like yourself.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's funny
thank you for the opportunity.
listening to you talk because you describe yourself as a kind of a quieter, more shy kid, and that you weren't interested in marketing, but you seem from all of the stuff I've heard from you, you seem to be like that seems to be a talent of yours, even if you haven't fully embraced it, to be the kind of outgoing, self-marketing type of guy.
Maybe I need to embrace myself even more.
Tap into it a little more, yeah, yeah. All right, man. Thanks again. Get back to those kiddos and take another nap, maybe.
Yes, naps
right.
are always good.
Bye.
Hey guys, before the outro, just wanted to remind you that the How the Heck Have You Been podcast is brought to you by the Art by Marker deck of playing cards. So I hand drew the artwork for all 52 cards plus 2 jokers. It's pretty sweet. Head over to our website, artbymarker.com, to check them out and support this one-man show. Thank you. All right, that was the show. Thanks for listening, everyone. Today's episode was recorded by Mark Dye. Our editor is Mark Dye, and he is also the executive producer. The intro and outro music was composed by Mark Dye in high school. It's really just me doing this. To support the How the Heck Have You Been podcast, visit artbymarker.com and buy some cool art. Thanks, y'all.